Alright, now we have example 2, and the reason why we're going over this is because we did this yesterday in class, but it seemed like a lot of you still needed practice on this. So here's the deal. The first thing in the CFS that we need is we already have x and y labeled, so we're going to label our ratios as y over x. So what you should have on your paper, again, is the ratio written out, or not the ratio, sorry, the table written out for you. And what I'm going to do is, again, we're going to label, you have ratio 1, ratio 2, and ratio 3. And what I was telling you is we usually look at the constant because the constant is being multiplied by my x values to get my y values, which means that my constant should be a number that's less than 1. Because here's what's happening. You're going from 10 to 2, which means that you're scaling down. And if I'm scaling down, I'm either dividing or I'm multiplying by a number that is smaller than 1. And because we multiply our constant of proportionality, we are actually not going to divide here. You still have to multiply, which is why there's a huge mistake into thinking that the constant is 5. It's not 5. Just because 10 divided by 5 gives me 2 does not mean that the constant is 5. So that's why we always need to write our ratios down to make sure that we are correct. So here you have your ratios. Again, we know that our ratios are always y over x. So you need to be careful here because that's saying y, which is 2 over 10. So we're going to do 2/10. The next one we have y over x, and that's going to equal 3 over 15. And the last one you have y over x, and that's going to equal, I'm going to give myself some space here, but 4 over 20, because again, that's y over x. So the goal is for us to figure out, okay, what is each fraction in its simplest form? So we have, when we said we're talking about simplifying fractions, you have to find the greatest common factor between the numerator and the denominator. So if I look at 2/10, I know that the greatest common factor has to be 2. And the reason why is because the only factor of 2 is 1 and 2. And 10 is a multiple of 2, which means 10 goes into 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 10 divided by 2 is 1/5. Okay, so 3 over 15. The greatest common factor between them is 3. Because the only common factors of 3 is 1 and 3. And 15, or am I saying that right? 15 is a multiple of 3, which means it can be, we could divide here. So 53 divided by 3 gives me 1. 15 divided by 3 gives me 5, so that's also 1/5. And the last one is 4 over 20. So the greatest common factor between them, usually when it's a really small number like 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's really easy to find the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor between 4 and 20 is 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So all of these equal 1/5, which means your constant is 1/5. And what I was trying to tell you guys yesterday is that on the side here, we noticed that if I do 10 divided by 5, that equals 2, which is why a lot of you are saying that the constant is 5, but that's not the case because the constant is always using multiplication. So really what's happening is 10 times 1/5, which equals also 2, because 1/5 of 10 is 2. So if I showed you this, like, just so you are clear, when I multiply fractions, 10 times 1, I'm going to show you right here. 10 times 1 is 10. 1 times 5 is 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So 1/5 of 10 is 2. 10 divided by 5 is 2. But my constant, because it's a scale factor, we're multiplying, I have to use 1/5 as my constant of proportionality because it's tied with multiplication. So be very careful. If x is greater than y, that means your constant has to be smaller because here we're scaling down. So my constant is smaller than 1. It'll be a fraction.